nice in homeschooling to get something that you finally feel comfortable with. That is not a sensation you often have. It certainly isn't. I am raising readers. I am raising children who love to read. My beef with reading systems, reading curriculums, is that it's just too much. Too much for the mom, too much for the child. I want to talk to you about teaching reading. Oh, are you a teacher? Yes. Are you credentialed? No. I'm Danielle. Welcome to my channel. I love to talk about everything mom related. We're talking a lot about homeschool. If I was to list the things I'm good at or the things that I've accomplished in my life, one of those things would be I've taught 4 children how to read. Because that to me is an accomplishment and it is such a special thing to do. That's not to say that I love teaching reading. No, there's very much of the day in and day out about any of these subjects that kind of take the pleasure out of it at times. But what I do love is I love starting them out on this journey that has impacted my own life so much, the journey of reading, the journey of adventure. In this video, I'm going to share with you what I like, what I use, and some tips and tricks that have worked for me. This is the book I use. As you can see, it is well loved. Teach your child to read in 100 easy lessons. Now it is in 2 parts because it has fallen apart. So why 100 easy lessons? Why do you like it so much? Is it the absolute best thing you can use for teaching your child how to read? You know, I can't say that it is, but it's best for me. And the reason is, it is a one-book stop. If I get curriculum and the teacher's manual looks like this, and the textbook looks like this, I'm out. You've already lost me. No. I need one book. I know that there is a certain intriguing element. Getting a curriculum that teaches your children how to read, teaches them grammar, gives them great start in spelling. It is taxing enough to just learn that A says A, B, K, D, without adding in all these elements, all these markings. So about this book, it is a nice blend, I find, of phonetics and sight reading. I really think that those 2 methods should be blended when you're teaching a child. I do recommend this book, and it is very inexpensive compared to getting whole curriculums. Also, I love that. All my kids have done really well with this book, except for my second. He definitely learned by sight reading. So this is a great program that you can start with and then add in whatever enhances your time together, whatever encourages what they're already learning. You can do flashcards, you can do games. Other things I like about this book, they're not long chapters, they're very doable, and they go by really quickly. I mentioned before that I am currently teaching my 4-year-old and my 6-year-old out of this same book. And why is that? Well, my 6-year-old had basically no interest. It's been laborious and slow, and he's a real joker and a real talker. So it's gone much slower. I've also started the book over and repeated chapters to give him more of a confidence. I'm not in a rush. However, my 4-year-old, he's very interested, wants to do reading lesson, wants to learn. So it's a great book to start at whatever age. So what does it say? Eat. So let's read the sentence.
And I said these words.
Yeah, you did. Give me 5.
All by myself.
For my second child, I got the Sing, Spell, Read, and Write curriculum. Oh, I loved it. I love it. It's so colorful and beautiful. So nostalgic of my childhood. I mean, I can remember all of those songs. It was not a good fit for my second son. However, and this is one of my tips, it is a great next step after you finish the 100 easy lessons. Those readers I love. The A is for apple, A is for apple, E is for egg, I don't remember. I, for a long time, like to have my kids read out loud to me. That helps them learn. And then you have your finger on the pulse of how they're doing. Finger on the pulse of what they're doing with sounding out their words, learning new words. I wasn't reading with my son too much anymore, my 3rd son, and he was telling me about this great book that I got him that he loves so much, and he read all of them, Encyclopedia Brown. I'm like, Encyclopedia Brown? He was reading the Encyclopedia Brown books. I realized that at all ages, it's very beneficial for children to read out loud. So let's just talk about 100 easy lessons for a minute. The E in this book is small, indicating that it is silent. So when we read words like this, I don't want them to focus on the straight line over the O, indicating that it is a long sound. Instead, I say when there's an E at the end, it makes the vowel say its name. And I'm not making them memorize this rule or anything, but I pretty much say it every time we come to something where there is a long vowel sound. Here's a few tips I have for you. If they are struggling with the sounds, this is very new to them, especially if they are young. Tell them. Don't make it a labor. I very often will recognize if a child is either being just too silly and not trying, or a child is actually trying but can't remember because there's just a lot of stuff going through their head. So I will just say stuff like, shh. If they're struggling, I give them a lot of hints. I want the whole experience to be fun. Now, it doesn't always feel that way, and sometimes I might be smoking a little bit out of my ears, but I'm not letting them know I'm smoking. There is always a frustration involved when you know your child knows these sounds. You know they can do this. You know they did it great yesterday. And so there's this tendency to have this frustration build because you're like, okay, you're not trying your hardest. They don't always try their hardest. I have to keep in mind the end goal is that I want my children to love to read. I want them to enjoy this journey their entire lives. Not all of school is fun. There is a lot of it that we have to just learn and labor through, and it's good for teaching them discipline, teaching them to follow instructions, do something that they don't necessarily feel like doing. However, reading to me is extremely important. I want it to be positive. I look at it like I am introducing them to a world, and they're getting to see glimpses of it. For instance, towards the end, you're reading stories about this long. Because I'm not making it a high pressure scenario, and I'm helping them with the things that they are having a hard time with, finding some fun on the moon. Every time they finish a sentence, I am opening my eyes wide. I'm like, wow, this is about the moon. I'm giving them a peek into a world that they're beginning to see. I am introducing them to something that is going to give them excitement their entire life, that is going to give them a sense of exploration, a sense of beauty and wonder. You're supposed to read these stories twice, and sometimes that ends up being a really big labor. So a couple things that I can recommend doing. Take turns, each of you reading a sentence. Your child gets a sentence, you read a sentence. Your child gets a sentence, you read a sentence. Also, one of the things I like to do is I'll pick out words that are repetitive, like some. You can see that there's a lot of words that are repetitive in the stories. Cow, some. Okay, I'm going to read all the other words. You read the word cow and you read the word some. And so not only are they sounding out the words they know, but then they are learning to recognize the word. When they start recognizing words and don't have the labor of sounding it out, they start getting super excited. And that is part of the wonder, which is why I want to just keep it moving. I want to keep it as a blend, phonetics and sight reading. Next tip, keep it under 30 minutes. I recommend 20 minutes. Even if you have to take a break after 20 minutes and say, let's get back to this, or let's just read this first paragraph and then we'll do the rest tomorrow. Don't be so OCD that you have to check off the box, that you have to finish the lesson. Follow the instructions as much as you can, but recognize that you are the teacher, you know your child, and you can change it up. Woo! And my next tip, obviously I've already mentioned this, keep it fun. And that's coupled with be creative. Do different things. I'm going to briefly touch on what I did for my second child. I mentioned that he learned by sight reading. I still did this book with him. When we got about to lesson 50, it started to get kind of complicated, and I started writing our own stories with words that were familiar to him. So basically, I had a notebook. Every day, I wrote a different story. Now, I'm not talking about long stories. I didn't write a 5-paragraph essay or anything. I wrote, Mason loves balls. Mason's ball is red. He loved balls. That was his first word. I used words that he recognized and that he loved. I used all of our names. He recognized our names before he could read the word up. He wanted to read about stuff that actually was relevant to his life. And that's what I recognized early. So every day I would write a new story on one piece, nice and big, because his eyesight was also a challenge, which is one of the reasons that getting into the smaller print was just too much for him at the time. And then the next day I would write another one. So at the end of our journey learning how to read, his journey learning how to read, he had a notebook that was his reading notebook. Stuff I had written, very basic, like you'd be probably embarrassed of me, not complicated stuff. It was actually a beautiful and fun way to read. He learned words like friends and summer and early on because those were interesting to him. Then as he started to get more comfortable sight reading, we then continued on in this book. We still finished the book, but it did take us about 3 years or maybe 2 years. So what I love is this just provides me with a baseline and then I can add anything else in. I am raising children who already have a huge appreciation for the adventure. And that was my goal. Another tip I have for you is don't put like a time limit on it. Okay, if I don't teach them to read this year, I am a total and utter failure. No, some children need a little bit more pushing along and prodding in this journey. So don't ever make it something that is not fun. Read to them a long time and then have them read to you small portions so that the pleasure of reading together is never lost. Just remember, no one can mom your kids like you. You are fully capable and competent to teach your children how to read. It's not rocket science, but it does require patience. Yep, patience. All right, guys, I'm Danielle Hogan. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next time. So what's the boy doing?
Eating a book.
Do you think he likes to eat?
Yeah.
What do you like to eat?
Everything in the world.